so pounds right now, give or take, depending on the individual. But sulcata tortoises are the third largest species in the world. So eventually those guys outside will get up to about 200 to 250 pounds. So they actually have quite a bit of growing left to do. And this little guy only weighs about 9 pounds, I think was his last weight. Now we do have another, he has like a quote unquote brother. His name is Leo. He's still inside in the back there. He's quite a bit smaller than Donnie. They hatched about a month apart from each other, but he's only about six or so pounds right now. So Donnie is quite a bit bigger than him currently. Eventually they might even out, or it might kind of stay a little bit. It's hard to tell with reptiles. Some of them go through like very fast growth spurts very young, and then they kind of slow down after a couple years. Others are the opposite. They grow very slow for the first couple years, and then they go through a very fast growth spurt later. Could be a couple of different reasons why. One, it could be diet, nutrition, things like that. Environment plays a big role in it. Now these guys being reptiles, I mentioned that they're ectotherms, so they are reliant on the outside temperature for their internal body temperature. But also reptiles are pretty special animals for a couple other reasons. One being they actually can't synthesize their own like vitamins and stuff like that. They have to get it from their food. And one of the most important things for them to get is vitamin D, calcium, and sunlight. If they don't get those things, it can actually lead to some very severe health problems. So like if they don't get proper like UVB lights, if they're housed inside, they can actually develop metabolic bone disease, which essentially is when your bones are very weak. They're like almost squishy. They can't harden properly because you're not getting enough nutrients and the right type of vitamins and minerals for your bones to be able to develop properly. Which again, I said that their shell is very, very important for them. If they get that metabolic bone disease, most of them end up passing from it, just because once they develop it, it's really, really hard to get them back into a healthy state. So with these guys, when they live inside, they have a UVB lamp, they have a heat lamp, and then also we add a supplement called Repashy to their food every morning, which is essentially just calcium and vitamin D. You have to be very careful with the balance though, because calcium and vitamin D pretty much have to go hand in hand. If you don't have calcium, you can't absorb vitamin D, vice versa. So you can't really only give them one, because essentially they won't be able to do anything with it if you're only giving them one of it and not the other. That was aggressive. So reptiles can be very, very challenging to have as pets if you don't know what you're doing, because they have very, very specific requirements for, like I said, lighting, temperature, humidity, things like that. These guys being a desert species, they don't really need humidity, but there's a lot of species of reptiles that require very high levels of humidity, and if they don't get that, again, it can lead to some really severe health problems. So they make amazing pets if you know what you're doing with them and you're prepared to do your research and you're prepared to potentially have a pet that's going to outlive you. Yeah. He's definitely going to outlive me. He could live to be 150 if we're lucky. I will not live that long. They are a lifetime commitment. Most turtles and tortoises are living a minimum of 30 years. The smaller species like box turtles are very popular pets. They can on average live 30 to 50 years. A lot of people don't know that when they get them as pets. They're like, oh, this is something that I'll have for a couple of years and then it'll pass, and it's not that big of a commitment. And then you get one and you're doing some research on it and you're like, wait a second, this thing is gonna end up in my will. It's the same thing with like parrots and stuff like that. Pretty much all of our parrots that we have here were either pet surrenders or rescues to us. So like parrots can live on average 60 to 80 years. People do not know that when they get them. You think of a bird, you think, oh, it'll live like 2 or 3 years. Not true for most species. So if you ever are going to consider getting like a reptile, a bird, any pet, even if it's a dog or a cat, always make sure you're doing your research, because a lot of the times you'll end up with some surprises that you were not expecting once you have them home already. And once you have them home, they're your responsibility at that point. Though, like these guys, they were pet surrenders to us, but their owners did the right thing. They understood that they weren't going to be able to give them what they needed, so they found somewhere for them to go that could care for them in the ways that they needed, which is the responsible thing to do. Unfortunately, a lot of these guys end up getting put on like Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, things like that, where they just end up with someone who is like, oh my gosh, cool, it's a pretty bird, it's a cool tortoise, and they also don't know what they're getting themselves into. So unfortunately, these guys can get passed around a lot, which again can have some really, really bad effects on their health. It can cut their lifespan in half. So it's like I said, really, really important that if you're ever going to try to get any kind of pet, from a fish to a tortoise to a dog, a cat, you always make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into. Because like I said, before I started working with animals, I had no idea that birds could live 60 to 80 years. And I went to school for this. So you never know what you're going to find out.
Why do they live so long?
Yeah,
Like 150 years.
The specifics of that is very complicated. Most of it is that once they reach full size, very little predation on these guys. And also, where they are normally found, there's not a lot of things that are threatening them. They usually have pretty abundant food sources, things like that. Their systems are extremely well developed to handle their environments and things like that. But as for like the specifics as to why they can live as long as they do, unfortunately, I do not have the science degree in order to tell you the genetic portion of that. But a lot of it is also just how their genetics works. Something about their genes and the way that their genes produce and things like that. Cells, it's mostly into cells, things like that, just allows them to live as long as they do. Anyone got more questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.